And we are off and running. What's up, my fellow Bar None warriors? My name is Chris. This is my channel, Bar None 11970, where we try and talk as much as possible about common sense, as much truth as possible, and getting you to hopefully start thinking for yourself and not relying so much on mainstream media, our political system, and our educational propaganda show. So, with that being said, we're going to talk about the latest thing that the mainstream media is trying to do to Donald Trump, and that is leaking some of Trump's taxes. So I want to explain a little bit about it, especially if you're not from the United States of America Corporation. You may not be familiar with these things, so I want to put a couple of things to light. Now, I will note that I am not an accountant, nor have I ever been, so I'm not a professional about this. I am my own business owner. I own my own karaoke business and own my own massage business, both since roughly between 2001 and 2002, in between both jobs. So I'm very familiar with how the taxes work because being your own boss, you have to file your taxes and you have to do it differently than the typical forms that most people will fill out. Now, what is going on basically is the New York Times leaked some 1995's taxes from Donald Trump, which, by the way, is totally illegal what they did. Now, from what I've researched, the newspaper is allowed to print it, but the person who gave the information, it is illegal to post somebody else's tax information. So, of course, the newspaper, New York Times, is not going to give up their source. But whoever that source was did something and broke the law. So I want to make that perfectly clear. And also, just in case if you're just tuning in, the newspaper itself, New York Times, even though they got it from somebody that was doing something illegal, the law protects them, so they can't be sued. They're not liable. So New York Times, they printed it, of course, obviously, because it was about Donald Trump. So according to what they were saying, this was a leak from his 1995 tax return. So this is a few years ago. This is not something recent, where he showed a $916 million loss, and he did not pay taxes. Now, those who don't understand how this works, I've been trying to tell you for a while now how the rich get away with things, and it's perfectly legal. Now, everything that he did was 100% legal, going according to how the IRS works. Because if you own your own business, you have so many deductions that are available to you. Your car, your gasoline, your clothing. For example, I've done in the past where I've had massages done at my house. I've had clients that lived closer to me than my office, and I had a living room where I could do the massages. And that's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter where I do them as long as I'm licensed. And I was able to deduct part of my mortgage payment as a tax deduction for the square footage of the area where I was doing the massages. If I bought for example, a CD player and CDs for the music, it's all tax deductible. So this is why I've always said to people, for example, I talk about how Hillary Clinton is always saying we need to tax the wealthy so we can get more revenue into the government. Sounds great, right? But what people don't understand is the multi-millionaire to billionaire corporate owners, they know how the system works. And what most of them do, and this is why you see that most jobs left the country, is they avoid taxes. And when they open offshore accounts, they cannot be touched by the IRS, as far as I believe. And that is why they can get away with showing losses, even though, as you could see, somebody like Donald Trump isn't exactly driving a 1972 Ford Pinto. He's doing rather well. So according to how our government has made the tax laws, they benefit the wealthy because of all the tax deductions and all the things that a business should do. So Donald Trump did nothing illegal and did what any business owner would do. And that is why, if you own your own business here in the United States of America Corporation, you are going to deduct every single penny you can. And if you ever got to the point where you owed zero taxes, how many of you would say, you know what? Even though my accountant said I owed no money because of the losses or deductions or what have you, I think I'm going to just throw in some extra thousands of dollars, just give it to the government because, the goodness of my heart. And that's what the majority of people don't seem to understand here, and what mainstream media is trying to portray Donald Trump as doing something wrong because he didn't pay taxes. And like I've said before, the extremely wealthy know how the system works, and they take advantage of the laws that were created by our government. So if people are angry that Donald Trump didn't pay taxes, it's not his fault that he's following the rules and the laws that were created by these politicians. But they don't point that out. And here's another funny part, and it shows how, hypocritical the mainstream media is. Now, if you know anything about Hillary Clinton, our hopefully not commander-in-chief, she had a pay-for-play Wikipedia exposure where when people wanted to have certain situations done, they couldn't just hand her money because that's bribery. That's something that could get her in a lot of trouble. But it's been proven that people, if they wanted certain things done or met certain people, they had to quote-unquote donate to the Clinton Foundation. Now, if you know anything about donations, they are tax exempt. So Hillary Clinton has gotten approximately $200 million worth of tax-free donations. Now, can I prove that 100% of it went in her pocket? Probably didn't work that way. But do you think that 100% of those quote-unquote donations went to just charity and not to them? How is it that Bill and Hillary Clinton can be so wealthy when what do they do? I mean, if you think of about a president makes what, approximately about 400,000 a year, and yet the Clintons are worth, I think they said, around $200 million. What do they sell? What are they doing? Where'd they get all that money? So when it comes to the taxes, especially if you live outside this country, most people are going to be probably outraged and say, oh, look at that millionaire making all of that money and not having to pay any taxes. But also keep in mind, when he writes a paycheck for one of his employees, there are taxes taken out. When he purchases things, there are taxes taken out. So it's not like he just doesn't spend any money. And I'm just basing this, not that I have sympathy, but because as my own business owner, I know that accountants will do everything they can to make sure you pay the least amount as possible. And people that are very wealthy know how to rig the system. They don't know how to rig it. They know how to rig it, but they know how to work the system. So it's the system that's the problem. He's just following what any business owner does. And if Hillary had her own business, she'd be doing the same thing. But the mainstream media, they are happy to post this illegally gotten report, but seem to omit all the emails and all the problems that have been happening with Hillary's scandal. So I find it a little hypocritical. So when it comes to taxes, if you own your own businesses, you could deduct so many things. I mean, I can deduct my gas receipts because I drive to my job. If I do any repairs on my job, on my car, I can deduct those. When I buy things for my DJ equipment, if I download and purchase a new karaoke song, these things are all tax write-offs. They're deductibles. And if anybody owns a business, they do the same exact thing. So this is nothing illegal. What he's showing is they've proven that he's followed the law. So he did nothing wrong. You're just basically going to do what the law allows. And there is no way he's going to say, oh, I don't owe any money because I showed a loss. Well, I guess I will donate a couple of $1 million to the government. It just, nobody does that. So I understand how people are confused by these things, especially if you don't live in this country. And I've tried to warn, well, not warn people, but explain to people why, when people like Hillary Clinton say, oh, we're going to tax the rich, it sounds good. And the poor people think, yeah, let's tax somebody else so I won't have to pay or I won't have to have any of my money stolen. What you don't understand is most of these multi-billion-dollar corporations that you think are being taxed know all of the loopholes in the government system so they don't have to pay. So is the government working really for the people, or are they working for the corporations, the major ones? And how many years have I been saying that the corporations benefit from the government and vice versa, and they work with each other? If you ever look at how many of these politicians go from working from places like Goldman Sachs and all these other big banks and commodity broker system firms and work in the government and go back and forth, they reward each other. And that is why there are no poor politicians, at least the ones up top. And if you look at their salaries, they don't make the same salary as, like, for example, a baseball player. Hardly even what the minimum uh, deal would be. Because I think the minimum in Major League Baseball for a bench player, I think, is approximately $600,000 a year. That's not even what the president makes. And yet, they're all extremely wealthy. There has to be a reason why they are so wealthy. It's because they all work together. And this is the part I'm trying to get everybody to understand. And that's why people have to be careful, because when it comes to agendas, when it comes to propaganda, it's all about giving not only misinformation, but only giving parts of information. They cut out certain key words that could actually change the story. So it just shows that I will never buy New York Times. I will never buy another newspaper again in my life. I will never watch mainstream media unless there's some video clip that's important enough for me to at least pay attention to. I don't contribute to their game. And I research things and I don't believe everything that I hear. And I've said that even for people that listen to me, because I don't get everything right. I can make mistakes. So verify things that you hear and you become more independent. And that's what this is all about. So my job is to try and do the best I can to help people start thinking for themselves, and don't just believe something that basically will give you an emotional response. So instead of thinking and processing and and responding in the correct way, you just say, oh, that's travesty, and I'm mad, and I'm going to cause a problem, and I'm going to just throw my hands up and hit the next person closest to me. People have to learn how things work. So yes, Donald Trump didn't pay any taxes. And then again, this is back in 1995. He showed a $916 million loss. So when you show a loss in your business, and it's pretty easy to show a loss because, like I said, you have to do all these deductions. And it's just following the rules of what this government has set up to benefit the extremely wealthy. If you are on welfare, like 1/3 of Americans are, or if you work at McDonald's or some lower tiered entry level position, you have no write-offs. You can't deduct anything. They take the taxes directly from your paycheck. So you don't get the same tax benefits as somebody like a Donald Trump or somebody like a Hillary Clinton, believe it or not. Like I said, she had her charity where people were quote unquote donating millions of dollars. Where's her tax reports? So again, the mainstream media wants to focus on Donald Trump because that's what they want to do. I've basically said neither one is going to help the system. I'm going to do a video probably tomorrow talking about what might be possibly happening to the economy if Donald Trump does become president. And I just want people to think for themselves and research things, because especially if you don't live in this country, you're not going to know how the tax system works. And according to mainstream media, they're just going to basically say, oh, you got to be mad at him because, look, he didn't pay any taxes. Well, most multimillionaires and multi-billionaires don't, because they know how to work the system that was created by our government. So like they say, don't hate the player, hate the game. So that's all I want to talk about. Rob Thomas says, glad I found you here a few months ago. I'm glad you found me, so thank you. Tevya, who was one of the people that followed me over from my We Love Comics days, good to hear from you. And John the Saint, love the name, says good point, so thank you. I appreciate you guys listening. So, as usual, I want you guys to share these if you appreciate it. Thumbs up always help. I appreciate any support you guys give. Leave a comment after this is uploaded, and just learn how things go and think for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. These are some interesting times ahead of us, and a lot of people feel that. So, we're basically, I'm looking at this from an observational point of view, waiting to see what happens. If nothing bad happens, that's a beautiful thing. But if something does come out of all of this, where we need to have paid attention, I guarantee you we'll be glad that we did. So thanks for watching, guys. Leave your comments once this re-uploads. Share it if you can. And don't forget to have your trolls spayed or neutered. Hope it helped. Have a great night, everybody.